Hi, this is Sue here from Tutor Your Child, and I just wanted to talk to you today about telling the time. This is something that children start to do in year 1 and 2. They start to tell what we call the analogue time. That's the time where we say 3:15, 2:30. That's what we call the analogue time. And then when they go into year 3 and 4, time becomes absolutely massive. They learn about the 24-hour clock, how that fits in with the 12-hour clock. They learn about analogue time and digital time, how the two fit together. And in all my time of tutoring, I see the most problems with children and teaching them time. And if we think about it, I think I learnt time as I just got older, and it sort of evolves, doesn't it? You learn time. But nowadays, children have to get to the end of year 4 and really have completed all their learning on time. The digital clock is very different to the analogue clock, obviously, in that it starts with the hour and you add on the minutes, and the minutes can go round to 59. And then, of course, there's the analogue clock, which you start with the minute hand and it only goes as far as 29 minutes past or 29 minutes to. So it is quite opposite, and that causes children the most confusion. So the only thing I would say for today, I'm just going to go over time in years 1 and 2. And I would just say, if you can teach your child to tell the analogue time, I know in these days of Fitbits and phones, that's quite difficult to sometimes see the analogue clocks. But if you can teach them the analogue clock by the time they leave infant school and go up to year 3, they will be in a far better place for the learning for the digital time that comes in year 3 and 4. It becomes more difficult for children who are still trying to catch up with the analogue time when they get to those digital learning times. So just wanted to go over the clock really for year 1 and 2. Now, I've got one of these clocks. These are brilliant. They're on Amazon. I think they're about £6. And as you move the long hand, the short hand moves at the right speed towards the next hour. So they're great for showing the children the movement of the shorter hand as well as the movement of the longer hand. I would start by pointing out to the children that the clock has 2 hands. We've got one long hand and we've got one shorter hand. The long hand we call the busy big hand because it goes round the clock all the way, whilst the lazy little hand only moves on one number. So we've got the busy big hand and we've got the lazy little hand. And I would just make sure children are familiar that the 2 hands are different sizes. That might sound really obvious, but when children start to have to draw the hands on the clock, they sometimes forget and they both end up the same length. So we've got the busy big hand and the lazy little hand. And then I would start with teaching them the o'clock. Now, when the long hand is pointing to the 12, it's something o'clock. We look at the shorter hand to see where it's pointing to. Now, there are 12 numbers on the clock, and the short hand will tell us what o'clock it is. This is going to be 11 o'clock. Then I would try and put the clock down, and I would get a pizza or a wrap or something, and I would teach the children once again, how many pieces have we cut this into? We've cut it in half. I would link that half back to the clock. So if this was a pizza and the long hand goes all the way around from the top to the bottom, we have cut it in half. So we say 1/2 Then we're going to see which number has the little hand gone past. Well, it's gone past the 11. So it's 11:30. We've cut the clock in half. Now, the benefit of these clocks, which is why I also love them, is that you can actually draw on them and you can show them you've cut it in half and the long hand has gone from the top to the bottom. It's gone halfway past 11, 11:30. Once your child is used to that and they know that the long hand pointing down is 1/2, then I would go back to your fractions and I would look at the quarters. We've cut this into quarters. So let's cut our clock into quarters. Let's pretend it's a pizza. And I have actually done it where I've made a pizza, put the numbers round and made a laminated picture of a pizza into a clock, and then it seems to sort of resonate with them, that the half and the quarter. So now we've got those lines on, the quarter lines, we can start from the top, 11 o'clock. Now what about if the long hand only gets to there? How much has it gone round? Well, it's gone round 1/4. So it's 11:15. And then we get to the bottom. Now the two side of the clock, children learn o'clock, 1/2 past, 1/4 past and 1/4 to. So they do actually go to the two side of the clock before we look at any of the numbers in between. What I would do, again, this is why these clocks are so good, I would write on here to and past. So on both sides of the clock, we're reminding the children that we've got the to side and the past side. So we've obviously just been to 11:15, and now we'll go to 11:30. And when the long hand gets onto this side, which side of the clock it's on? Well, it's on the to side. So we look at how far it's got to go to get to the top. And hopefully children will see, well, it's got 1/4 to go. So it's 1/4 to, what's it going towards? 12. 1/4 to 12. Now, when you're looking at the to and the past, I sometimes say to children, think about toothpaste. Toothpaste, to and past. That will tell you that the to is on this side and the past is on this side. So hopefully they will start to really remember their 1/2 past, 1/4 past, 1/4 to, and the different sides of the clock. You could draw a clock as well, make a clock with a paper plate, stick the numbers all the way round, and then colour in half the clock as the to side, half as the past side. I would do that, lots of visuals, so the children really are knowing that there are two sides to the clock. And this long hand is moving a lot quicker than the shorter hand. Stick with that. I would make sure your children are very solid in those few bits of time before you start looking at the numbers in between. And then you can start to look at, well, let's count round. And again, this clock is brilliant because we've got the little dots. Let's count round all the little dots. And if we count round them all, there are 60. There are 60 minutes all the way round. Then we can talk about how that moves the little hand 1 hour. 60 minutes equal 1 hour. And then we can start to say, well, instead of counting every dot, we can just count round in fives. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 60. And I think what I'll do is I'll do another video on the 5-minute time, because I think at the moment, if you can just get used to that, take every opportunity at home to tell the time, look at the analogue clock, and just see if you can get your child involved in telling the time. Don't worry about the digital time at the moment, that's for year 3 and 4. See if you can actually use an analogue clock in your house, and if you haven't got one, maybe just see if you can invest in a cheap analogue clock, alarm clock or something, just so that your child can actually watch the time. Don't worry about the second hand, it's just the long hand, the big hand, the minute hand and the hour hand that we're interested in at the moment. By the time your child gets to the end of year 2, we hope they're looking at the 5-minute times as well. But I think this is where we would like the children to be solid in, perhaps by Christmas in year 2, and then we can just add on the 5 minutes before the end of the year. So any practice you can do at home will really help your child going forward. Thanks for watching.